Hello and welcome back to my podcast. So the truth is that Thank Yous from Heaven Part 1 was kind of more honest and real and sincere in the fact that I really struggled that week. And so I decided to do 2 different parts, even though that episode was pretty short, so that this really cool miracle story was all by itself. And if I wanted to share this miracle story with anyone, I could just share this episode, and then they didn't have to listen about how that week was difficult for me and how I got discouraged. So that's one of the reasons I put them into 2 parts. And then I realized that I forgot to explain why I named it Thank Yous from Heaven. So I thought I'd start with that. I have been extremely blessed. Extremely, immensely blessed, because I have been gifted recently with the ability to feel the Spirit and to have the Spirit talk to me. And I did not experience that in my youth at all, ever. In fact, I went 9-10 months without feeling anything, without feeling the Spirit, without feeling joy. I just had a lot of feelings that weren't positive, kind of felt numb sometimes. And so the fact that I'm able to listen to the Spirit and hear it talk to me is such a wonderful and beautiful blessing that I hope to never take for granted. Anyway, so the point in this is that it's actually kind of important to the story, but I just am grateful because while I was at FSY, one of the first times in my entire life, is the first time in my entire life, that I've heard the Spirit say thank you. And that has been crazy to me. I mean, it was just so reinforcing to do something scary, to follow through on a prompting, and then to hear thank you. It felt kind of miraculous to me. I'd get a prompting to do something, and I would follow through on it, and a little bit later I would hear thank you for doing that. That proves to me that Heavenly Father loves His children. That proves to me that He cares about us. That proves to me that He is in our lives, He is in the details of our lives, and wants us to be happy. And by hearing those 2 words, thank you, I knew that I was making a difference, and I knew that I was following what God wanted me to do. And that was a gift in of itself. And so I named this podcast title Thank Yous from Heaven because that week I just received a few thank yous. And it was just such a wonderful, very special, sacred thing for me to follow through on a prompting and to hear thank you. And I know that Heavenly Father is grateful and glad when we follow through on what He prompts us to do, because He really does want us to lift each other up and to be earthly angels in other people's lives. It reminds me of Mosiah 2:17. It says, "And behold, I tell you these things that ye may learn wisdom, that ye may learn that when ye are in the service of your fellow beings, ye are only in the service of your God." I know that when we follow promptings and when we do good, that Heavenly Father is proud of us. I tagged Moroni 7:13, so I'll read that one too. It says, "But behold, that which is of God inviteth and enticeth to do good continually. Wherefore everything which inviteth and enticeth to do good, and to love God, and to serve Him, is inspired of God." And I think that's freaking awesome that the scriptures actually talk about that God enticeth to do good. God enticeth us to reach out to His other kids and to lift them up. So, the miracle story that I want to tell you is such a wonderful, beautiful, cute little story, and it's kind of a wackadoodle story, and not the aspect that it's like a story that's crazy, but the ending of it was really profound, and I'm excited to share it with you. In case this young woman is listening that the story is about, I asked her if I could use her name, and she said yes, and she'd love a shout out, but I learned this summer from a coordinator that I have to have parental permission to use someone's name. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use any names, and that's a little bit sad for me. I'm a little bit disappointed by that, but I don't want to break any rules, and so Last year, I was a little bit more lax on that because there weren't the new privacy laws that have come into place between last year and this year, and that's just changed things a little bit. The practices of like how we communicated about the youth changed, and we weren't allowed to use the youth's name in text to each other, and so that's been different from the last 2 years. And I know that the privacy laws have just gotten a little bit stricter. So in order to keep confidentiality and to be a rule follower, I'm not going to say her name, but she is the cutest girl. I will say I randomly picked a name. This is not her name. This is just a name I picked. So hopefully she's okay with the name I'm going to use. But I picked the name Daisy because she is just absolutely precious and adorable and kind and sweet, and so I picked the name Daisy. So her name's not Daisy, but I'm going to be calling her Daisy because it kind of just fits her. So I almost named this story or this podcast episode a different name specific to her story, but I just decided to do Thank Yous from Heaven Part 2 so that you know it's kind of from the same week. But I thought about naming it Blessed with the Backstory, or the rest of the story, or the ending to the story, you know, all of those kind of lines. But I just decided to go with Thank Yous from Heaven, also because I told her that I would create a podcast episode and it would probably be named that. So I'm really hoping she was able to find it and was able to listen to the story. So here we go. We were sitting in testimony meeting on Thursday night. And I say sitting, the youth were sitting, the counselors in the back were all standing because we didn't have enough chairs in the room. And so we were standing. It was kind of a hot room. It got very hot in there, and it was kind of an uncomfortable degree of hot. Like I just felt kind of sweaty, and I wish the AC was working, but I don't know what was going on. That room just was not pleasant to be in temperature-wise. But I enjoyed being in testimony meeting, and I enjoyed just spending time in there. And as I was standing there, I looked at Daisy. I just noticed her. And I think I've already mentioned this to you, but I'm going to just say it again in case you haven't heard in my other episodes. But I made a promise with myself, and I made a goal that anytime I noticed a youth, and anytime I just saw them, that I was going to talk to them. And it didn't matter if I knew who they were, if they were in my company, if they weren't in my company, if I knew what to say. It didn't matter. I decided I was going to talk to them no matter what. And so I noticed Daisy, and I decided in my head, I'm going to talk to her. And so I asked the counselor next to me, I whispered, like, hey, what's her name? And he mouthed her name back to me. And so I knew her name, even though we hadn't talked yet, because I asked her counselor. And 2 minutes, I kid you not, 2 minutes after I noticed her, 2 minutes after I decided I was going to talk to her, she gets up and she bears her testimony. And as she's bearing her testimony, the Spirit tells me, you need to talk to her. And this isn't one of those times where I just feel prompted, like I noticed her, I'm going to talk to her. That already happened. This time I am being told, I need you to talk to her. That's what I heard. I need you to talk to her. And I was like, okay, like I promise I'm going to. And as I've kind of mentioned before, I keep track of when I feel the Spirit. And so I screenshot my phone and I wrote, I need you to talk to her, or you need to talk to her on it. And then after she finished bearing her testimony, she sat back down. And I just started thinking, like, what do I need to say to her? Like, what does she need to hear? And I really wasn't sure. And so I was just like, okay, I'll just say whatever comes to mind when I talk to her. So testimony meeting ended. And my company just kind of picked up and left. We weren't conducting, neither of my co or I was conducting, and so we were able to just leave. So my company all gathered up, lined up, and then my co took off. And I said, hey, I'll just catch up with you. And he was like, okay. So he just left. And I really appreciate Keegan for doing that. I really appreciate that he just trusted me and didn't ask questions. He just went and did, and I ended up catching up to them pretty easily, so it worked out. So anyway, they left. And I was kind of opening the door, like waiting for the other company to come out, because I don't know if I already told you this, but the companies, normally at testimony meeting, you're with a few other companies. You're with at least 1 to 2 other companies. And Daisy was in another company. She wasn't in my company. So eventually they start coming out. They kind of took a little bit of time. They were kind of talking a little bit. So eventually they came out, and Daisy was crying already, just kind of drying up her tears, because testimony meeting can be emotional. And after she came out, I kind of called out to her, "Hey, Daisy." And she kind of came over and I said, "Can I talk to you?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I said, "Your counselor told me your name." So that's how I know it. And I said, "I just feel really prompted to tell you. I really need you to know that everything will be okay. The Heavenly Father loves you, that He's aware of you, and your question is going to be answered soon." And she was kind of drying up her tears, and immediately when I said that, she gets really, really emotional, and she starts crying a lot, and looks very affected, and very, very influenced and impacted by what I said. And so she asked I can't remember if she either asked if she could give me a hug, or if I held my arms out, or if she held her arms out. I don't really remember. But she gave me a hug, and then I left. I walked away. And a lot of times that's it. A lot of times I walk away and I don't get to know. A lot of times that's the miracle right there. But this time, as I mentioned, I was blessed with the backstory. So let me not get ahead of myself though. So that was Thursday night, and Friday at the dance I saw her. And I thought, I should go talk to her. But I didn't want it to be about me. I didn't want to make it about me and be like, "So, tell me more," And so I didn't go up to her because, like I said, I didn't want to just make it all about me. So I didn't. And then Saturday morning, we ran into each other. So as she was already packed up, she was waiting outside the dorms for her parents to show up. We ran into each other. And she was hanging out with a friend, so we had the rule of 3. And she was super excited to see me. I was super excited to see her. And she said that she was so glad she found me because all day on Friday she was looking for me. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, why did I not follow the prompting to come talk to you?" And I told her, I was like, "I felt prompted to talk to you on Friday at the dance, but I didn't want to, make it all about me." And she was like, "Yeah, I was asking around and asking other counselors if they knew who you were and was trying to find you." And so I'm really grateful that Heavenly Father crossed our paths together, especially after I didn't listen to the prompting. But it worked out perfectly because I think the dance would have been kind of distracting to have this moment, and I wouldn't have gotten more to the story. So I got to hear the whole story. So anyway, I run into her on Saturday morning and she says, "I want to tell you the whole story." And I was like, "Yes, I'd love to know." So she starts explaining that she has felt chronic pain in her left hip and leg for a long time. And it's been very painful and very difficult. And she said they've seen a lot of doctors. They've gone to doctors, they've been to specialists, and gotten MRIs and x-rays and the whole shebang, and they just don't know what's wrong. They just don't know why this pain is happening. They don't know why she's experiencing this. They don't know why it keeps coming back. They just don't know. They don't know. And so she said that as she was sitting there in testimony meeting, she started thinking about this and started getting really discouraged. And she started to think about how she might never know. She kind of explained to me that she started wondering if the pain might be forever and she might have to forever live with the condition. She also was really worried that she might never know, that her leg would always hurt and she would never know why. And she just got stressed. And she told me that she was actually seeing more doctors after FSY and was worried that they weren't going to know either, that they weren't going to have answers either. And then I told her, just minutes after these thoughts in a testimony meeting, word for word, I said, "Everything will be okay. Heavenly Father loves you and is aware of you, and your question is going to be answered soon." Bruh, is that crazy or what? So when she told me that Saturday morning, I literally could not stop saying, and I kept saying, "Dang, that's wackadoodle. Dang, that's wackadoodle." It was crazy. And then she told me that on Friday at the dance, her leg had started hurting again, and she got discouraged again. But she ended up asking for a priesthood blessing and got permission from her parents. And in the blessing, her counselor said, "Everything will be okay. Heavenly Father loves you and is aware of you, and your question will be answered soon." Is that not bonkers or what? And that thing, she didn't even tell me. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself. So she told me she got a blessing on Friday night at the dance. And then she said after the blessing, her leg stopped hurting. And she said that during company taking it home, so this is like the last activity of the week with your company, she went up to her counselors and she started jumping up and down and says, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. And normally she couldn't do that. She couldn't jump up and down without immense pain. And so that was a really spectacular, miraculous moment for her. And that next morning she said, like right now, talking to you and standing here, it's not hurting. And she says, that's not normal. Normally it would be hurting. She also said that if it came back and if it started hurting again, that she knew everything would be okay. She knew that even though the pain might come back, Heavenly Father loved her and was aware of her and that everything was going to be okay. And that was so amazing and tender. So anyway, I got ahead of myself. But later that day when she had gone home and when the counselors were just hanging out, we were playing Jackbox, and both her male counselors, because she had 2 male counselors and 1 female counselor, because in California, like I said, you have a trio, were telling me that she got a blessing on Friday night, and they were telling me what they said in the blessing. And Harrison, which is her male counselor, told me that he said almost the exact same words to her the day before in the blessing. Everything will be okay. Heavenly Father loves you and is aware of you, and your question will be answered soon. And that blows my mind, that not only did I say everything's going to be okay, because she was curious, and that her question would be answered soon. But in a priesthood blessing the next day, she heard the exact same thing. And so I know that both of those messages were from God. Because Daisy wasn't in my company. I didn't know her. I had never met her. I had never talked to her before. I had never seen her. Like I said, I asked her counselor for her name. I didn't know her. I didn't know her at all. I didn't know her experience. I didn't know her life situation, nothing. But I noticed her. And then, after I noticed her, the Spirit told me. It said, you need to talk to her. And like I said, I screenshot that and wrote that down. And when I met Daisy that morning on Saturday, when I ran into her again, I showed her. I showed her my phone, and I showed her the screenshot. It said 8:40 p.m. on Thursday, and she was blown away. We were both blown away. It was a crazy experience. But the fact that I had that I had that proof that not only did Heavenly Father tell me to talk to you, but I have proof that He did. He said, you need to talk to her, and I said, okay. And it was just such a miraculous, really cool experience. And how blessed are we both that Heavenly Father trusted me with that prompting and with that message, and that Heavenly Father answered her prayers. I know, and I have a testimony, that Heavenly Father hears our prayers. I know and have a testimony that He answers them. I know and have a testimony that as we continually seek Him and we seek His Son, that our lives will be infinitely better. That they are the source of true joy and true peace, and that through them everything will be okay. And that we know that the most powerful being of the universe loves us, is aware of us, and will answer our questions. And I'm so grateful for Daisy and running into her and her wanting to tell me the rest of the story, because I think we both benefited from that. I was able to explain to her from my position and my perspective what that was like, getting a prompting to come talk to her. And she was able to tell me the backstory of why that was so special and so miraculous. And I am so blessed for that. I know, without a shadow of a doubt, without any concern in my mind, that Heavenly Father loves us more than we know, more than we can comprehend. And I'm never going to stop saying that, because it's true, and I don't think we can hear the truth enough in our lives. I know without a shadow of a doubt that Heavenly Father is aware of Daisy, that He's aware of you, that He hears your prayers, every word, every concern, every feeling of distress, every feeling of anxiety, every pang of sadness. He knows, He's aware, and He is with you. My friends, I hope you continue to remember and continue to look for Heavenly Father's hand in your life, because I promise it's there. I promise He hasn't forgotten you, and I promise He hasn't given up on you. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to embrace imperfection, find meaning, satisfaction, and joy from the journey. And follow those promptings, even if they're weird, even if they're going to make you feel weird, because Heavenly Father is grateful, and maybe one day you'll be told thank you too. I'm Kyra, and this is Imperfectly Broken, the podcast.